Hello, everyone, and welcome to the last class of the Maya Dynamics, well, course. Da-da-da, with your lead instructor, Mr. Paul Campbell. Hey, Paul.
Greetings. Thank you for your open, Jason.
Yes, sir. Also, we have the lovely Nina Covington here.
Hello.
And unfortunately, I will not be here today other than just bringing us in, as I've got a class that'll be going on in just a few hours myself, and I have a few things that I need to get prepared. So I won't be hanging out, unfortunately, but you guys will be in fantastic hands with Mr. Paul. So with that, let's go ahead and jump over to his screen real quick.
Yes, please do.
And so here we go.
Show my screen. Excellent.
Fantastic.
Right.
And Paul, I'll hand it over to you, sir.
Excellent. Thank you, Jason, and good luck on your class later tonight.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right. Well, this is our last class, class number 6. And since we were all hearing some some technical issues with audio, do let me know on BuzzNet if my voice is not coming through clearly. If I need to turn down volume, turn it up, whatever we need to do. Thank you. And let's see, to start off, so last week we wrapped up, we were working on a sort of dirty fuel fire Maya scene, and I actually have posted, no one needs to grab this immediately, but this is just for you to have. I posted in the chat room. I don't know if you can see what people have posted before you arrive, but let me go ahead and drop this in there again, and I'll have Nina put this on the calendar as well. Dirty fuel fire. So here is. So this is the finalized Maya fuel scene that you guys saw me. We began working on last week. Before we dive into doing some more dynamics and fluid sims, we're going to just talk about, in general, some issues with fluid sims, step you through where inside of Maya there are some examples, and even just show you where things live, like the ocean shader and stuff like that. So to begin, first, one comment I wanted to share with you guys is that when you're working with fluid sims, scale is a big issue. If you drop in some fire or some smoke and you just try to scale it up to match whatever the scale is of your 3D scene, it may not work right. The priority is on scaling your scene back down to your fluid sim. So I just wanted to show, in the process of showing you guys where some of these presets, if you will, sort of live inside of Maya. I will demonstrate how when we scale them up and scale them down, they'll kind of break and they won't look as nice when we don't have them at the right size. So first, so people know, if you want to just follow along, we'll go to pull up the Maya visor. Window General Editor's visor, and in here are just some examples of lots of things, but specifically there's some end particles, fluids, all kinds of stuff. The ocean is in here, and let's just glance at, let's start with, if we go to fluid examples and open up fire, there's one that's just called flame.ma, and I'm going to right click on it and say import into Maya, and just to show you, let's see, I'll extend my frame count to 300, get my render view up and set to mental ray, and most of these presets that they've created come with a camera set up with them. So if you go to panels and look for the cam that came with your scene that you've imported in, just choose that camera, it'll give us a decent view. So if I go ahead and play that sim out, I don't know whether or not you can see the little particles on my screen, but if I have a render, hopefully you can see the results. So this is just a simple flame, and if we keep playing it, you can see it change and shift. Okay, yep. So this is a really good example of like a flame on the end of a torch, or the flame on the end of a match. So there was a time when I was working on a project, and where we had to have there was maybe 4 lanterns and a fireplace and all kinds of stuff in a major scene. And as I was learning, and at this time, this Maya Fluids Fire was a brand new feature inside of Maya. This might have been 2008 or 2009 version of Maya. I'm not sure which. But I did as anybody would, and first I just tried to, I had my scene, imported in some flame, and tried to just scale it up. And so I'm going to just group what they gave us for this. Now if I just scale this up to maybe match my huge scene, and then we rewind and play. Let's see the results by comparison. So as you can see, once we raise the scale, the quality just really plummets. It stops looking very good. The motion likewise will also not be as well. It's just not a good deal. And you have so I show you that just to reinforce. Hey, when you're wanting to do a simulation or some dynamics, you'll have to scale your scene to match your effect that you're working on. Let's just clear that out. New scene. And let me just show off to you guys some of the other items that come inside of our visor. So in here we've got, let's next go to clouds. So under fluids, yes, so under fluid examples, under clouds and fogs, I'll go ahead and load faster clouds.ma. And again, I'll go ahead and just show you this camera that it comes with. Make sure we're on, switch it back over to mental ray and have a I don't like where that camera's coming from, but zoom out and we can show the clouds there, get into the clouds. So this would be great if you were wanting to do kind of like a flyover or a fly through or coming through some clouds, even a one of these shots where we're at like the height of a satellite and we fly into the earth to zoom into someone's window or front door or something. You could use clouds like this to create some clouds for us to fly through. So we've got clouds in there. Back to the old visor. And two fluid examples. Let's see, there were several cloud samples in there. Let's go to explosions. Where's this one? Let's see where the one is. I would fire explosions, nuke, import. So I'll try out their camera this time, even though I didn't like the last camera. Rewind. Wait. Let's see what this results is. So here we have, I know there's kind of like a ground plane that's sort of expanding down on the floor, ground level, and here there should be some kind of smoke and glowing things. Array. Okay, so if we let that further develop, we'll start to see the smoke, I guess. I'll switch over to my perspective cam. A little longer. Now you can start to see the smoke that's coming out of it. So these are great. These are great presets to grab, open up, to dig around into. Some of them they've added some custom controls that you can see how they created them. You can see their mel or their PyMel work. I really like that part about it. Okay, back to the visor. Let's go into in particle example, and I liked this one. Gas flame. And that guy. And once they start dissipating at the top, we'll zoom in and give it a good look. And I do switch over to Mental Ray because my software just doesn't have is of course a less superior renderer. So that one's pretty cool as well. And last, and here in the visor, we'll look at the ocean shader just to make everybody aware that it's there. And we'll glance a little bit at some of the settings, but we won't spend a lot of time there. Let's look at the high seas. Has anybody in the class today worked with the ocean shader before on their own? Nope, never. Yeah, it's pretty fun. It's not amazing, like it's not film quality. It's not as nice as the kind of oceans that we see in feature films by far, but it's still very, very good. It gets you far along. It's pretty fun. Let's look at the results here. And you have a lot of control where you can control the white caps, the textured white caps. Ooh. Doesn't look very good. Oh, that's because this one has atmosphere. It has like fog. Fog is laid over the top of everything. From there. And now we're right on top of the water, and where it kind of breaks down because we're too close to it. You can start to see the artifacting, but you can really see how in the shader it's got the correct fractal movements inside of the water to make that look really nice. So that's really fun. And there's several presets in here, and let me switch over to a different preset, and then we'll look a little bit at some of the controls. And as you can see in here, what's really neat is when you have an ocean created, if you look at these examples, you can create a boat, or you can just even drop a box in there, and you can say, hey, make this item float. And then you can say, make this item create a wake, and then you can animate that item pushing through, and it will create a wake, much like the boat wake you see here. We'll go for the giant storm version of the ocean. See how it looks. Change to their camera. There we go. This one's kind of fun. So here now you can see how they have the texture from the texture starts to turn white as it gets to the peaks to give the illusion of there being white caps happening. And this is more fog goes on. Water spray, I'm not sure. I'd have to check that out. But here, if we select our geometry, so when you're working with the ocean shader, the ocean is kind of this infinite item that goes on forever, but they will give you a small. So this square that I've got selected is the atmosphere that gives it that sort of rainy or foggy look. But then this square that I'm going to attempt to select, this. So this is sort of the little bit of feedback that we get, this kind of OpenGL feedback we get. And there you can see, let's extend my animation to 300. So now you can see that it's animated and moving. And in here, there are just a ton, much like, so if we go over to the ocean shader, there are just loads of controls, much like the other fluid sims, and where we control the shading and the density and the wind speed and the wave speed and how frequent the waves are coming through, direction, all kinds of stuff. Go ahead, Nina.
Vincent wants to know if you can scale the ocean in the Transform 1 node.
The only part
he said, can we scale the ocean? And then he says, in the Transform 1 node, I assume.
Yes, affirmative. And normally you wouldn't scale it. You would adjust a change, because normally it's a bad idea to scale any of these sort of effects, these fluid sims, these ocean shader, these kinds of things. When you scale them, they usually won't work as well. Whereas suppose if you wanted them to look like it was a different size, you would adjust the frequency of its waves and those kinds of things. I don't know if that makes more sense or not. Like here in the ocean shader, up at the top there is wavelength, and if you were to start shrinking those things down, that might be a better way of scaling as opposed to physically scaling. You can physically scale, but it won't always work ideally. Cool, thanks for that, Nina. Make sure I try to have my questions up for
Oh, don't worry about it. I got your back.
Great. Excellent. Let me go into my other windows here. Okay. I'll just kind of scrub through these a little bit just to talk about them, to show that we have we have control of things like turbulence in a graphical way, which is handy. Wave peaking, all kinds of shading controls, which we'll be getting into today when we're shading our fluid sim today. So all very similar. So what's neat too with the ocean, you can set the color of your environment when you go in and change these settings. So the environment is what reflects off of the ocean. So whatever is the environment will actually change very much what your ocean looks like, because the ocean doesn't necessarily have a color it's very strong itself, but it's just reflecting what's around it. And to demo that, let me just pull up that guy again. Just render again. I should have. It's not right, but. So anyways, I was just going to show that
You're sounding a little muffled.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, there you go. Better.
Is that better? Okay, so here, this is kind of a stormy, dark ocean, and by comparison, I'll load up another one that really the biggest change is the color of the environment. So let me go back to the visor. And this one is called Normal Sea. If I grab that guy, it has a much brighter environment associated with it. So we'll go down into its camera and so here this one is much brighter, all because of the environment being changed, having a much brighter skylight there, that kind of stuff. So having a dark background really affects what the ocean reflects, which is what gives it most of its color. Great. Mic is still working good, I assume? I will keep on trekking.
Yes, you are doing well.
Great. Okay. Well, I really just wanted to step through some of the. Oh, there was one other area inside of the visor I neglected to cover. Let's hit that. No, general. And this one's really fun. Under the effects assets, there's some fire smoke presets, of several fireworks presets. So I thought these were really fun when I came across these. They were new in 2012 to me. I hadn't seen them in 2011, or maybe I kind of skipped 2011, I guess, 2010 straight to 2012. So let's do fireworks bombs. I'll bring that one in. And let's see how this looks when we push play on it. So what's really fun is that there are some controls on, I will render this here shortly, but there are some. So they create it as an asset that you can import and move around and change the animation, but they also give you kind of like a master control on these presets. But right here, there is a detonation frame, so you can literally just key what frame you want this firework to go off, and then it will just go off, and the rest will animate as you see as it does by default, but at the correct time. So they give you some tools to animate it really easy. You can go and create this kind of thing from scratch, but it is fun to start with one of these guys and dig around and see what they've done to make this. So let's render that guy. That looks really simple. Let's try mental ray or another example. Maybe I need to rewind. Let's rewind a bit. Okay.
Someone was curious about the mental ray render option.
Okay.
It's over in BuzzNet.
Yeah, it looks like it's John O.
Yeah.
Let's see. I don't seem to have a mental ray render option, and you do exactly as Vincent said. I will do it here on the screen. So often when we restart Maya or restart our machine, for whatever reason, the mental ray plugin won't load by default. And to resolve that, excuse my voice today, I am fighting a cold. We go to Window, Settings, Preferences, and then at the very bottom, go to the Plugin Manager. And this is we're going to look for Maya 2 MR, which is this right here. Maya 2 Mental Ray bundle, it says.
Okay.
And then you need to check. Then you check both boxes next to it, loaded and auto load. So next time you launch, it will auto load if you check that auto load box. As long as it saves that, so you have that turned on, you should be good to go. Excellent. Okay. Let me go ahead and load one more. I didn't like that. That firework looked kind of weak. Let's find a better one.
It was a little on the weak side, wasn't it?
Yes.
Anticlimactic. That one looks really cool.
Fireworks. Oh, it does look cool. Let's try that one out.
Not quite the dud.
Right. Ooh, that one's really bright.
Pow.
Extend my frames a bit. I'll play on a little longer. See what it looks like. It's further along. Oops.
Very cool.
See how much of that is glowing and going. Ooh, so that's really bright, but getting it across. Ooh, still. Vincent says he's still playing with the ocean.
I saw that.
Yes, the ocean is totally awesome. It's really fun. I did some stills with some depth of field and things like that using the ocean shader, and in the end, it really felt like an actual photograph. That's a lot of fun. It's really
quite
fun
impressive, I have to say, as somebody that's not, done a lot of 3D or any actually. That it really looks like a real picture. I was really impressed with the ocean.
Yes, it was definitely made a pun intended. It definitely made a big splash when it came out. It was a big deal.
I bet it did.
Nice. Okay. And let me give the visor one last glance, but I believe that's kind of wraps it up. I can just point out that there are other items here. There is a laser, like a laser beam is one that's here. There's multiple fireworks examples.
Is that a comet down bottom right? They look like comets or something. I can't tell.
Sparks is in the
Sparks.
Bottom right.
Okay. I couldn't see the name.
Sparks.
Yeah,
Oh, that's right. I wanted to show this one. This is a rocket flame. This one was kind of cool. This one was very neat. Let's just start over. Let's load the old rocket.
Oh, wow.
This one's pretty cool. You can imagine. Um, not too long ago I saw Men in Black 3 where they had this rocket ship taking off, and
Mm-hmm.
that made me think of this effect right here. And you can see how it's a little the voxels are a little pixelated, and that's just because the resolution in the container is low, but that's given us the feeling of a rocket shooting off exhaust down here at the bottom. Cool. I'm checking BuzzNet. Someone says melt. In the homework we made sparks and particles. Someone's talking about Maya 2013 as being cool. Okay. Let's go ahead and take an early break, Nina. If we want to go ahead
Okay.
and pause the video,
No
let's go
problem.
ahead and take a break now, because the next section will be us making a flamethrower, basically.
Awesome.
I
Okay.
believe until about the end of class. So
Very cool. I'm going to go
go
ahead
ahead and
and
go.
pause recording now. Now.
Excellent. All right. I assume my screen's coming through clearly.
Yes, indeedy.
Fabulous. All right. So we are going to make a flamethrower. To start off, here is the F-check playback. There could be some more tweaking done here, motion blur, things like that added, but
Oh, that's
we're
cool.
squirting burning fluid at us. Okay, so that's what we're going to try to crank out for the next bit.
That is
So
awesome.
off we go. Off we go. Okay, first things first. Let's create a fluid container. And so first we'll need to go over to our in Dynamics menu. And just a heads up, we are going to be doing a lot of just little technical tweaks of we're going to create a fluid container, create an emitter, and then we're just going to dive through all of the settings that are inside of the emitter, but mostly inside of the fluid container, and just tweak everything. And it's just lots of editing attributes.
Uh-huh.
Taking a little test render, tweak it again, take a little test render, so you guys know what's coming. That's what is ahead of us. Okay.
All right.
So I said the wrong thing by going to nDynamics. We go to Regular Dynamics, and under Fluid Effects, go to Create 3D Container, and we can go ahead and go to the option box and go ahead and punch in our data here. So we want to create a 3D container that is of resolution 50 in all three directions, and the size is going to be 35. We'll say apply and close. And then we're going to do our up. Have a gander on it. Okay. And actually, we're going to go ahead and rotate this 90 degrees. Let's see which. I'm going to go to this side. I'm going to go to this side so that my X positive is going to the left. It really doesn't matter, but I'm just going to do it. So the resolution was 50 and X, Y, and Z, and then the size is 35. Vincent asked that question. And then we're going to rotate our whole fluid container by 90 degrees. So let's go punch in -90. So what we're doing this for is, typically you put an emitter on the ground, and this sort of bottom panel is where it kind of pushes everything up. But since we're shooting from screen right to screen left, instead of us fighting gravity, if you will, or fighting the up motion of it, we're going to use our box, turn it sideways, and let our box push our fluid to the screen left. Okie dokie. So once we've got that made, now we're going to make an emitter for ourselves. So let's make a little bit of geometry. So I'm just going to make a poly cube and put a little cylinder inside of it. And then on the end of that cylinder, we'll also place a torus to be our object that emits. So remember, I'm just sort of making a gun nozzle. I'm not even, we're not making a gun or anything, just something that can be shooting a fluid out for us. We could also just make a torus and be done with it, but I'm going to make a little bit more. Hit 5 to go to shaded mode.
I'm going to ask a question. So, is there any
Please
quick
do.
way to center that that onto your cube that you made, or do you have to manually do that? Is there any like little snap twos to center? I'm just
Yeah, I
curious.
can hold down. Yeah, I can hold down. For snapping to the center of that, I am not being a strong modeler. That is not my
Gotcha.
area of expertise. But I usually hold down X and it can snap to my grid points. And I could snap this to a grid point as well. Like
Okay.
but there are other snapping. I'm sure there's a center snapping that someone like Vincent will tell me what to do.
He says there is snapping C, V, or X. Well, there you go.
Yes. No. All right. We'll just parent those together. Control or group them together. Control G to make them a group. Now I can move them together, and we'll rotate them -90 as well. Okay. Okie dokie. I'll go ahead and make a ground plane. And for fun, when I was working this out for the class, I threw in a piece of geometry for it to collide with, and I even set it to collide, and it collided, but it just wasn't very exciting. So I'm going to leave it off today. This didn't do a lot, but it was still there and working. Okay. So let's go ahead and just animate this guy moving through a few frames, a few positions. So we have it grouped here, and we go ahead and adjust mine. So never mind. Before we do that, we should add our torus. Let's create a torus and then attach it to our object. Go ahead and parent it onto that, and that will be what we use shortly to emit. I used to have a doctor when I was a kid, my pediatrician. We could hear him walking down the hallway from all of his dooby-dooby-doos. He would walk down. And every time I start to hum on my own, I always think of that.
Yeah.
That guy.
I always create theme music pretty much with everything I do.
Is it epic feature film theme music? Dun, 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 dun.
Sometimes, especially when I'm riding, and that's kind of funny when I'm riding my horse, I'll have
Nice.
the epic theme
You
music.
have a horse? That is so cool that you have a horse.
Oh, yeah.
I had no idea. That is awesome.
I am an equestrian.
Very cool. Okay. So I've tweaked it so that I have a lot of geometry that can be emitting. And I'll go ahead and parent that or drop that into the group. Let me walk through this step, make sure everybody is aware of this kind of move. So I have this group. We call this the gun. group, and I can select my torus in the outliner and middle click, drag, and just drop that right on top of the gun, and that puts the torus inside of this parent group. So it will all move together now when we select gun. Cool. Nice. All right. And let's go ahead and make this our emitter. So I'm going to choose just our torus, if I'm able. We'll let this be our emitter. So we'll go to Fluid Effects, Add Edit Contents, Emit from Object. And let's hit the option box on Emit from Object. And we'll go ahead and punch in our settings that we have instead of creating it and then changing them. So here we go. Here's some settings for you guys. The density is going to be set to 5. Our heat, we're going to set to 2. Our fuel, we will set to 4. And fluid drop-off, we'll keep that at 2. And go ahead and I'll hit apply and close. Oh, and of course, Maya wants to know what container are we associating with this. So if we shift click on the container, and now hit apply and close, hopefully it will take. And let's go to, we'll say 300 frames, or 200 frames, let's do 200. Okay. Let's see what this looks like just to start for starters. So if we push play, hopefully you have some smoke coming off of your emitter.
Woohoo!
Okay, so we have it. We have it started. Yay! Oh. Okay. Let's go ahead and pull up our outliner and select our torus. Under our torus is our emitter. So we'll go there, and then we go check our emitter settings. So everything should have been the default that we punched in. It should have come in, and the only thing we want to tweak is we want to adjust our turbulence. We're going to set that to 10. I'm going to mute my microphone for a second while I clear my throat.
Okie dokie.
Okay, hopefully that didn't come through too much. And
I didn't hear a thing.
Good. Okay, so now that we've thrown in some turbulence, let's just see if that does anything right off the bat or not. We'll just let that play for a second. So now there's a little bit more noise, but it's still just going straight. Okay. So that's our emitter settings. So next it's time for us to dive into the immense, huge amount of controls that is our fluid container. So we have an emitter. We've set up those emitter settings, and what really drives how it's shaded, things like opacity, density, volume, all this stuff can all be driven inside of this our container. So let's go to our fluid shape, and let's start cranking away. So to begin, we're going to scrub on down here to the contents methods section of our fluid shape. And by default, we have density set to dynamic grid, velocity to dynamic grid, and likewise, we want to turn temperature and fuel to dynamic grid. And next up, we'll go down to display. We'll tweak that down here under voxel quality from faster to better. So that will display in our viewport a little better. And we're going to go down to, and I like to close these windows as I get through them when I'm on a smaller screen, like during screencasting. So next up, we'll go to dynamic simulation. And give me a yell if I need to repeat some of this stuff, no problem. So under dynamic simulation, we're going to go to viscosity and set that to 0.02. And viscosity is, how does this fluid move? So if it was like honey or something, this might be a very kind of a high number to slow down the viscosity. That would be slow and sticky and move along. But with this being a gas, we want to lower that way down. We'll set dampening to 0.01. And our simulation scale rate, we'll up that to 1.4. Okay. I'm going to close that up. And now we move on to where are we at? Content details. Right here. Okay, so we're going to dive into all of these big time settings: density, velocity, turbulence, temperature, fuel, and color. So we'll start with density. We're going to take our density to scales 2, buoyancy to 55. So buoyancy is something rising up, and since our container here that I have selected is sideways, buoyancy will actually mean how increasing the speed of the gas moving from screen right to screen left, since we're using the container to our advantage. So buoyancy of 55, dissipation 0.2, and then we'll go down to velocity. This swirl number is a fun one. Set that to 15. And I'll keep it. Next up, turbulence. We'll set our turbulence strength to 0.01. Leave the rest. Move down to temperature. And we'll go to temperature scale of 0.5. And add temperature buoyancy, take it from 3 to 10. Next up is fuel. We'll take our fuel scale to 2. Reaction speed, bring that up close to 1. Just say 0.95. And that's that for the. Is this under cover? So that's that for that section we call contents details. So density, velocity, turbulence, temperature, fuel. Bring that all down again. Now we're going to go to shading. But before we do that, before we go to shading, I will go ahead and open it up. Before we go to shading, let's have a look and see how those changes have affected our animation. So now it's moving out faster. Like all fluid sims, it has that sort of mushroom at the front, but the rest of it's moving pretty good. Stop. And just so that we can do it, let's just see. We haven't messed with the shading yet, but let's have a render of this guy and say that. Vincent's killing me. Paul, please repeat everything after create a 3D container. Don't.
Oh, I see that.
Excellent. So we can see how things look now. Let me go ahead and save that. And now that we're going to get into shading, let's watch how we're going to have a lot of change. Okay, so under shading, we'll begin with transparency. So we're going to click on the color swatch of transparency. We're going to go to the V key, and because this is a fluid, a high transparency, and this value of 0.91 is a great one. So, and as you can see, that makes it very hard to see in the viewport. I don't know if that will come through the screencast for you guys or not, but it really makes it very transparent. But it's good for our fluid that we're doing. Our drop-off shape will be changed from cube to off. And then we're going to go to color. So we're going to take our color and we're going to slide it over to around 0.81. Just happen to hit 0.817. I'll stick with that. And I'm going to hit my color swatch. And we'll go to 26, 1, and 0.815. That will give us a kind of a dark orange, as you can see.
Oh, well,
Yep.
at first Raven was asking if you could wait a moment. Then he said, never mind. I guess his Maya crashed.
Yes, I would be. We could pause. We could pause.
You want to pause it really quick and let them catch up?
Let's pause the recording.
Okay, let's pausing now so we can give them a moment to catch up. Go.
Yeah. All right, now we're back to it again. Okay, so we are at color. We're going to finish the color adjustments off. Excuse my window popping up there as I move my notes over. Okay, so we've slid that over, set our color, and now we're going to go down to incandescence. So we're going to have 4 color swatches. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to create this one over, and throw one here in the back. That one's going to basically go to white. So again, more attributes, more typing in of numbers. And yeah, anytime we make a big change, I do want to try to remember to have a render. So this is where we started. And now we've toned our transparency down to make it more see-through. One thing I haven't done is we haven't thrown in some lights. We need to do that. We'll do that here in a moment. And then we changed our color. So let's just see where we stand. Okay, it basically looks like the viewport. Not a big deal. Let's go ahead and everybody take a moment to save where you are. Okay. Yeah, and as Vincent said, haha, do that. Oh, sorry.
Learning the hard way on the save.
Yes. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and create a point light and a spotlight. Just when we render, we have a little better look going on. Let me change. I'm going to make a camera because I don't want to keep my current camera where it's at. Okay. So I'm just going to throw a point light over here, turn it down to, I don't know, 0.4, take it to a warm color. And go ahead and turn on ray trace shadows. Just leave it at a default ray trace shadow setting. So that's a point light with the ray trace shadow turned on. And make us a spotlight. Soften that puppy up. There's brightness as well, down to 0.3 or something like this. We'll have to turn those up later. And we'll do another warm color. And again, turning on ray trace shadows would be wise. Okay. Just want to see if that makes our And they're looking different. Not really. Not yet. We just have lots more work to do. Okay. Let's go ahead and save that, and let's continue. Okay. So we are on to incandescence. Okay. So let me go back to selecting our fluid container. Move on down to incandescence. So here we go. We're going to select our rightmost guy. I'm going to turn, oops, hello. I'm going to just kind of manually take it to white. And then we're going to punch in these numbers. For 39, excuse me, under the HSV values, for H, it's going to be 10.85 and 10 again for V. So that's going to take it to white. Moving to the second swatch. Again on the color. We're going to take that to 14 under HSV. We'll go 14.815 again, and 1.8. That's kind of a peach color. I was expecting that to look more yellow. That's odd. Again, 13. Oh, 14. What does it matter? 14. 815 and 1.8. Okay, we'll keep going. Next up is this darker orange. Set our colors to 15.85 and 0.675. Okay. All right. That takes care of those incandescent settings. We're going to go to the input bias. Oh, excuse me. First, we go to this drop-down incandescence input under where it says temperature. Switch that to constant. Input bias was set to 0.3. Okay. And that is the end of the incandescence portion. So now that we've done our color, our incandescence, let's again check out how we're looking. That was my Tennessee coming out. Check out how we're looking.
Let's just check and see. Reckon how it looks.
Have you look around here. All right. All right, so we're starting to, these oranges are starting to come through, but we still have some an opacity tweak to make that will make a big difference, and some more visual tweaks. So we're basically kind of tweaking the shading settings portions of our fluid emitter that really will give us the look that we do or do not want. And it's sometimes just the tiniest of tweaks, very small tweaks, make a huge difference in the way that this looks. Okay. So next up, we go for the opacity, and to open up this big opacity, to get a bigger window than the one that's currently available, just hit this arrow to the screen right. And then we're going to make a spike right here for our opacity, and that's going to really give our fluid the look that we want. Up all the way to the top, all the way back down. And we're going to take the one that's screen right all the way down. So this kind of opacity, just the tiniest adjustment on this, will really give you a different look. So I'm going to take it white. And you can even see in the viewport how as I make this bigger, more of the fluid starts to show up. And as I trim it back again, there's less and less. See, now let's have a look-see. Oh yes, and save. Save before you crash. Save. We'll save that guy, and let's have another render. Ooh,
Ooh,
starting to look like a possible flame.
very
Starting to
cool.
get closer. Okay. Then once that opacity is done, we can close that down. And we need to adjust our opacity input bias to 0.45. Okay. That might be a little high. We might be turning that down later, but we'll leave it there for now. Okay. So next up is shading quality. We minimize all these guys for now. Okay. Under shading quality, we're going to take our quality down. This is just to speed up our render time and change our render interpolation from linear to smooth. And then next up is textures. And from those changes, one of those changes was a big change where we literally haven't moved anything. We adjusted the input bias. Notice now how much fluids will be showing up now. All we did was adjust that one number, and now we got tons of flames.
Woohoo!
Fire, fire, fire.
Fire, fire!
I taught a class today up at the Art Institute, and one of my students was wearing a Beavis and Butthead shirt.
No, they were not. That's awesome.
Would be appropriate. Fire, fire.
Fire, fire. They'd appreciate this.
Definitely would. Okay.
Oh, the good old days.
Oh, I know. Gotta miss that. Oh my jid. Okay, so under textures, the first thing we'll do is check our texture color box, which will open us up to these other settings. We're going to go down to texture type. And we're going to change that to space time. And at texture time, which I need to find down below, we're going to actually put in for the first time, I believe in this class, I don't think we've done this yet, we're going to put an expression in under texture time. So to do that, we right-click, say Create New Expression, and up pops our expression editor, and we want to set the value of texture time equal to some expression. So we're going to say it equals time times 0.1. And this is just so this value will be increasing as time increases. And if we don't like the way it's moving, we can come back and tweak it. We'll see. But now, after doing that, now the texture time value will turn to purple. And you'll notice I don't really want to go. I will. If I was to scrub here, this value would increase as we move further and further to the right. Cool. Okay. That is the texture portion. Okay. And let's see how we're looking. Let's have a look-see. Save. Render. Not too much change from the last one. Cool. Alrighty. Next, we're going to we're going to put a volume axis on here. Basically, we're going to add, if you can imagine adding a fan to the front of this to make it shoot out even further. So I'm going to, before I do that, first I'm going to grab our fluid container, and I'm going to make it tall. I'm going to go up to its container properties. I want to make it taller. So that would be Y, correct? So if I say 35, I should be able to say something like 45. It won't go taller. Yes, but it also moves a lot. We'll take it to 50. Let's see what that does. Move that back to there or so. Okay. Cool. Okay, so we're going to create a volume axis field. Before we do that, let me rewind to just see how let's just have a look and see how the sim is going so far. So push and play. So there's our little mushroom cloud at the front. And out comes everything else. Let's keep moving. Let's see how that's looking. Ooh, it's really hot, a little blown out, but it's coming along well. Okie dokie. So we're going to add a volume axis field. So I'm going to rewind. We're going to go to fields, volume axis. So I'm going to create that. Pull it up here. Drag our volume axis nearish to where we. Wow, that was easy. That was put in place. Now we're going to fiddle with its settings. Okay, so on our volume axis, right now, this volume axis is blowing in every direction. With it selected, I'm going to go over to my channel editor and adjust. Down here we have a long axis. So by default, it doesn't go along an axis. We're going to tell it to go along an axis. And right now it's going up. So I will, rotate this guy. We'll pull it to the front. So -90. Okay. And then we're going to scale it to kind of encompass this whole nozzle. So we'll make it bigger, make it longer, a little bigger. Move it back. That was a little too long. That's probably good right there. Okay, so now we have this volume axis here ready to crank, and we're gonna. Well, let's have a look at it with just throwing that on. It's set to magnitude 5, so it's strength of 5 is this fan blowing stuff out. Push play. So it should kind of shove stuff a little faster through. Let me pause, zoom in a little bit. A little render. Oh, big and flamey.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we can't really tell when we're playing back at this speed, but it's moving forward a little bit faster, not much. But if we crank this up to 55. And then we'll rewind and give it a play again. So now it's moving a lot faster. You can see the noise and how it's changing shape often. And one way we can know, because let me escape here. Well, let's actually confirm. There's 2 ways to confirm. Hey, we added this turbulence field in. Hey, is it really doing anything, or is it really connected correctly? So, for one, when our turbulence field is selected, if your container, let me select in the outliner. If I have my turbulence field selected, where are you? Volume axis field, excuse me. Then when this container turns purple, that lets me know, hey, those are connected. You're good to go. But to double check that, we can go to General Editors. Where is it? Window. Will come to me. Relationship Editor, Dynamic Relationships. And what we should see is, if I select this guy, we should see with them both selected if there's blue between. So right now when we select the fluid, like the fluid container, it's telling us, hey, you are connected to volume axis because this is blue. And likewise, the volume axis turned purple. Now if I uncheck that, now they're no longer connected. We want to keep them connected. I'll turn it back on. I think I covered that last class, but we'll do it again. Okay. Next up, we're going to go to our container settings. So back to our container settings. So we'll go into the attribute editor of our container settings. And we're going to go find turbulence in here. Let's see them. One thing we haven't done is we haven't turned on the active container size. That's something we'll do at the end. If someone reminds me remind me if I forget. So we're looking for turbulence. We're going to animate. So we're going to attempt, I didn't think I was terribly successful at it when I was trying to work this out, but we're going to attempt to disrupt this mushroom cloud that we get at the front even more than it already is disrupted. You kind of, all fluids that sim like this start with a big amount of that at the front. So we're going to try to break it up. And to break it up some, we're going to go to frame 1, and under turbulence, we're going to keyframe our turbulence up to 10 at frame 1. And I'm going to set a key, and then we're going to go to frame 30. Actually, let me watch it. Let's see. It does even break it up for us. So it kind of has broken it up for us there. So we're going to say at frame 20, we're going to key it back down to 0.01, which is essentially the 0 value for it. Okay. Let's let that play, and let's see how our renders are looking. Nice. Coming along swimmingly. And that seemed to, better than when I was trying to work this out before, that seemed to do a decent job of breaking up that sort of mushroom cloud that we have at the front. So that's really nice. I'll have a render of that just one more time. Okay. Okay, now we're going to go to, let me let this play out. We're going to go back down to shading and try to play a little bit more, try to get a little bit more detail out of it all. Oh, and at this point as well, we're going to crank up our container resolution. So we started off at 50. We're going to bump that up to 75 now. We're going to go down to our shading tab. Pick that up. I'm going to look at the. Where am I settings? I'm not seeing it. Oh, we're going from shading down to textures, and this is the complicated part. Okay, under textures, coordinate methods set to grid. So we're changing from a fixed method to a grid method. We're going to get our coordinate speed. We're going to bump that up to 0.5. And we're going to now work on the opacity. Okay, first, let's have a quick render to see if that made anything drastic. Don't think that we have any drastic changes. Let's have another look. This was a little bit hotter to me than the previous frame. Nope, same.
We have a question. The questions panel says, can you have the fire stick to some other surface / object like napalm, for example?
You would have to have a second emitter. The fire won't just go and then stick to that geometry. What you would do is, shoot a flamethrower at it and then have a second fire emitter, fluid flame emitter, light up the other object. If that answers that question. Nope. Okay.
Does that answer your question, Vincent? He says, yes, thank you.
Great. Okay. Okay. I'm going to turn on the opacity. Let's see if I can remember where to go make our tweak. that turned on, I'm thinking this is where our image changed some, but let me double check. Yes. So just by turning on opacity, it has thinned it out. And going to move that down. What's the number? We're above our ratio, just from 7 to 8. Really small change. And next up, we're going to work on the incandescence settings. We're not. We're going to leave that right where it was. Okay. We're done with this texture section. Let's hop back up to under shading. There was transparency, and we have pull this up. We have this frame. We're going to adjust our transparency and try to take it. Let's take it to 0.6 and see if it's too transparent, or if we can survive with that big of a change. Oh, that's a little strong. Let's fix that. 0.85. You can really see when you make really small changes, it just affects stuff dramatically. So I guess we'll need to be keeping it where it is. And in fact, I'm going to even try to go even higher, 0.95. Let's see what that does. Okay. And now we're going to swing back over to our textures and tweak our frequency rotation and depth max. Okay, textures. Oops. So we're going to adjust our frequency ratio from 2 to 3, and our depth max also to 3. And let's see what that does for this last step. So you can see how just tweaking our transparency really changes the feeling, how full and where the highlights are happening. I'm going to try to turn that transparency down again. Shading. Let's see what that does. Too much. So set it to 0.98. That's too thin. So yeah, we're getting close. 6.5. Might be a little too transparent, but it's getting close. I'm liking that. I think that's reasonable enough. You can tweak it to how you like it. Okay. So let me rewind, punch play, and let's have a look-see. See how we're doing. So it's coming out broken up. We don't have our mushroom head cloud. That's still successful. Everything else following behind it. All right. Ooh. let's see if I can go find some to show. Okay, so, oh, right. So now we need to, let's set our grid so that it will change its size. So I've got to go find where that setting is. Okay, auto resize. I'm going to go ahead and take on auto resize. And actually, you'll notice, or tell me if you notice this, right now we're on frame 30 and see how far developed. I feel like I noticed once I turned on auto resize that it would often slow down how fast my dynamic simulation would happen. So tell me if you see the same thing. So we've got, since y is going up, we'll have a boundary on the y side, and everything else can adjust its side. So hopefully the floor will stay there. So when I push play, it should resize our container. Let's see what happens. And notice how, before when we weren't auto resizing, when we were at frame 30, it was already way out here, and a lot more was happening. So I'm just gonna leave auto resize off, and I feel like that alone was creating almost that mushroom cloud look from mine before. So I'm gonna leave that auto resize off, and let's have a look. Let's see if we're keeping it that way. Let's see. I assume you auto resize to say processing power. Question from Nato. Yes, the reason you auto resize is to reduce, if you have a really heavy sim, to reduce how many calculations, because in this grid, this is where all of the fluid calculation is occurring. Anything outside of the grid, Maya is not calculating. So it can calculate faster if you shrink the size of your container. But there was a drawback that we were saying the container was actually affecting our simulation and making it look less desirable, in my opinion. Hello, pause. Okay. Let's see if I can go find. Oh, I won't stop. There we go.
Chris asked if you can set a minimum size, but have it resized if it needs to.
Yes. Can you set a minimum size? Oh, that's a good question. And I've not ever attempted that. Let's have a look. Don't see a minimum setting in here. I see a max, an auto resize threshold, auto resize margin, but I don't see a minimum that we could use to keep it, out here where it is. I don't see that. I would have to investigate that one. That was a great question. Excuse me. I was wanting to find one video. Let's see if we can find it. There we go. Okay. So something that's pretty cool that we can see inside of these containers is we can see where the velocities are actually happening. And if your velocities are out of control, sometimes looking through this view will help you out. Okay, so I'm going to turn on velocity draw, which is going to show us a bunch of nasty arrows that we can't see. They're so big, I'm going to shrink their length. So now if we look in here, you can see where, due to the turbulence field and the buoyancy and all that, all these things are moving forward and how they're hitting the wall and spinning around and all that stuff. So that is all kind of rather reasonable looking and not too disruptive. So if we rewind and play, you can watch that. And I will turn on where it says shaded display is set to render. I can just turn that off. And I'll push play. So here you can see it's showing us the velocities in these spaces. Ooh, I'm going to have to shrink our velocity so we can actually see what's happening. 1 second. Maybe it's still going to be big. Well, let's do it this way. Let's turn it off. Turn on our render. This is usually how I do it to be fast about it. and I go till I see, if there's a frame or two that I want to check. Right here at the beginning, I'll go ahead and pause it and do a velocity draw and see how it's looking. So nothing's too crazy. There's not like huge. There are a couple of huge ones just shooting off into crazy directions, but often you'll see like a big crowd or a big bunch of velocities all going off in different directions out of the same point, and that lets you know that you kind of have congestion happening there, or stuff's not working right. And all these little areas, these are all considered voxels, all these little cubes where a velocity draw has happened. So when you hear the word voxel, you can know that it's talking about a slice of a fluid container would be a voxel. And yeah, so that's a way to kind of check what's going on inside of your scene. And I think that really kind of nails what I was trying to show you guys as far as getting a flamethrower built, created, and working. And then, as usual, we will go ahead and do it with all fluids in dynamic simulations. We would need to cache them out. So let me just go ahead and do that. Before we cache it out, for fun, let me throw in a piece of geometry. Create polygon pyramid. I'm going to make a pyramid. Just throw it in here and see how. And I'll set it to collide. Let's see how much of a reaction we get, if we get much of that. Okay, that seems reasonable. So we will select, go to my outliner. Since I don't know any better, I'm just going to select both of my fluids, my fluid container and my fluid emitter, and my pyramid. And we're going to say, what do we do this? Fluids, make collide. So hopefully that will just make the pyramid collide with the other two guys. 1, 2, 3. Cross his fingers. And let's rewind and see what that does. Missing. Let's see where it's all going. Okay. Yeah, so you can actually see it hitting. This is nice. So you can actually see it colliding with our pyramid shape and even causing a gap in the flame back here.
Nice.
So that's actually work. That's kind of cool. Let's render that from that angle really quick and see what we've got. Yeah, cool. So we can see it hitting, kind of bunching up and wrapping around. Fun.
Very cool.
Okay. Yeah, so let me rewind. Let me select those fluids and cache them out. And we'll be near wrapping it up for the day, minus questions. So fluid in cache. And we'll say create new cache. I'll just let that crank for a moment. And I don't think I can do anything. Well, is it doing anything? Yes. No, yes. There it goes. You can see it changing on the screen. So I know this part has been somewhat tedious and not terribly entertaining, but going through and showing you, hey, this is with doing this work, you can get a resulting flamethrower looking device. So yeah, do you guys have any questions about what we've covered so far? I will go ahead and drop. I have notes of all of these settings. I will go ahead and pass on these notes to Nina for her to put on the calendar page for you guys to grab if that's appropriate, I
And I
can just
think,
email
yeah,
those.
and you gave a link earlier. If you could send that to me too. You
Yes,
posted a link
yes, I
in
will do that
BuzzNet.
too. Yes, definitely.
Jono asked, when is class
Um,
2? We're actually talking about that, so.
yep, 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 yep. We'll be discussing.
Does
Probably.
anybody have any questions?
I
Vincent,
will. Let's see if I can. I know. I want to ask Nina if I can come meet her horse someday. That
Yeah,
sounds way
you can
cool.
come meet my horse.
I have some boys, some little boys that would love to meet a horse
Oh,
too.
yeah. It's all the way out in Bell Buckle.
Oh wow!
Yeah. But yeah. Jonah, I guess there's no homework since this is the last class.
Correct. No, no homework to be assigned. Let me see if I can pause that. Okay, I'm gonna since I believe it's zoomed out to frame 100. I'll just go ahead and give this a look-see in our viewport one more time. Rewind, and just to show how it plays much faster once it's been cached out.
Vincent's wondering if you would make an underwater scene, is there any kind of dynamics for the water distortion of the camera? Or would that just be
I would
playing
think.
with camera attributes?
I really don't. I honestly haven't done. Excuse me. I haven't personally done a lot of underwater scenes, so I honestly haven't had to tackle that before. I mean, I know that there's liquid sims and you can get inside of them with the camera, but usually it's not set up to distort the camera itself. I think that would make it really costly to render. So I think those distortions are usually just cheated in post. Usually do that in comp after the fact and not the whole time in the frame underwater. It would be better. Your time is better used that way. Let's see if I can pause this and get our last render. Hello. There we go.
Well,
All right.
he said, would there be, what does he say? So if we would like to animate camera going into the water, under the water.
Right. That's like a big working thing. That would take some time. Where if you're going into water, a lot of times a cheat that I've seen is that people will, if you're making the transition from above water to underwater, and this is CG, often the one frame that sells it, that kind of is the one frame that where you're both above and below water, ends up being a painting job or a Photoshop work
Ah.
where you kind of by hand are fixing it, because in the camera or in 3D, when you cross that plane, you end up looking at like a jagged, hard edge of an ocean and not a natural looking water scene. So you do something else to beautify it, because naturally it doesn't come off beautiful by itself, if that makes sense. And our last huge flamethrower shot.
Boom.
Ooh, that's a little one. Bluey.
Pow.
Ooh.
That turned
So
out
let's
really
watch our
cool.
let's glance at the evolution of our progress. Ooh. I always like this part.
Yeah, that's neat that you can do that.
Seeing all our little steps, so we get the blammo big one. Cool.
Vincent wants to know if did you ever do a melting ice with fire,
and a
flamethrower,
flamethrower.
etc.?
No, no, I have not. But I should. That would be really fun. And I can think of already doing, taking a model, converting it to a mesh fluid, and after it's been, hit with a flamethrower, letting that mesh fluid just
Let
drip
melt.
down with
You can make a
like a lava,
snowman.
like a lava or a honey preset or something like that to get you started out of the nCloth stuff.
With the holidays or the season, you could make a snowman, melt Frosty.
Oh yes, absolutely. I like that idea. That's very good.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, if there are no more questions,
All right,
at
last
this point,
chance, Vincent.
yeah. He says. Nice.
He does
Well,
have
yeah,
good questions.
He does. I will pass on the notes as was asked. And anything else you guys can think of, even after the fact, if you have a question, feel free to pass it on to me or through Nina or whatever works. And this class has been a treat. I hope you guys have enjoyed seeing some new stuff. We've only covered a handful of the things that you can do inside of Dynamics with Maya, and I really appreciate how you guys have taken to it and been on board, and even passing on to me links like the link given in last class. That was really great. For other examples of dynamics and fluids to go look at. And someone's asking about one or two, like another class. We'll be in talks with that. I don't imagine we'll be in talks with that. You'll be getting an email or something like that about it.
Yes, definitely.
So, excellent. Nina, thank you so very much.
Thank you, Paul. This has been fun.
Host today. It's been a treat to work with you for these 6 classes.
Yeah, I've had a great time.
Excellent.
All right. Well, bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. See you all next class that we run.